Star Wars is unquestionably a film franchise that has created an enduring effect on popular culture. Its sprawling space fantasy plot has captivated viewers of all ages, and its influence is unlikely to fade anytime soon. As a result, numerous filmmakers have sought to replicate George Lucas's creation in their own works. While a few of these films have found a place in the public's attention, others have slipped into obscurity. In this video, we'll look at some of the films influenced by Star Wars, both famous and forgettable. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
We're down from 6 to 5. Get ready.
Number 1. Starcrash, 1978. The film's director, Luigi Cozzi, says that his outer space adventure movie was in the works before the premiere of Star Wars, and that any resemblance is entirely accidental, even though the fundamental premise for both films happen to be eerily similar. After all, it seems like a blonde hero wielding laser-bladed swords is a must in just about any action film. Coincidence? We don't think so. And clearly, many others agree, because Starcrash almost failed to find a distributor, despite its allegedly thrilling action and amazing special effects, with American International Pictures deeming the final film too unpolished and poorly produced. In the end, Roger Corman's New Worlds Pictures distributed the film. While it did not maintain the same degree of popularity as Star Wars, it nevertheless has a devoted following of enthusiasts who admire the film's distinctive take on the space action genre. The plot of the film revolves around Stella Star and Acton, two infamous smugglers who are constantly on the run from the law. One day, while evading law enforcement, they come across a lone castaway in space. The smugglers are then suddenly hired by the Emperor of the Galaxy to accomplish a mission and free the galaxy from the evil Count Zarth Arn's grasp. As they set out on their perilous quest, the Emperor's son is reported missing, and they realize that they must also rescue him. Stella and Acton are aware that their journey is packed with peril, but they have no choice but to succeed nevertheless. They fight terrible dangers and battle their way across perilous terrain, using their amazing skill and cunning to remain one step above their adversaries. As time runs out, they must muster all of their bravery and might to execute their goal and protect the galaxy from catastrophic destruction. Number 2. The Last Starfighter, 1984. In this 80s film, a young man from a humble upbringing is thrust into a cosmic fight against an authoritarian empire. Sounds familiar? That's because it is. While The Last Starfighter clearly mirrors the growth in interest in video games at the time, it also certainly tries to profit off of the impact of Star Wars. The film features epic space conflicts and a hero's quest for self-discovery. It also inventively features an old mentor who appears to die but returns to help him in his goal. Although The Last Starfighter has a devoted fan base, it was never as successful as Star Wars. Yet, it is nonetheless remembered for what it brought to the sci-fi genre. In this movie, we encounter Alex, a young man who lives with his family in a tiny community and runs a trailer court. One day, he masters a difficult arcade game called Starfighter, and his accomplishment is praised by his community. He then meets Centauri, a stranger who claims to be the maker of Starfighter. Alex is taken away on an unexpected interstellar journey, where he must utilize his abilities to aid in defense of the galaxy against a hostile alien invasion. Though hesitant at first, he finally recognizes the urgency of what's happening and takes action to save the day. On the journey, he must deal with a violent alien bounty seeker who is out to get him. Ultimately, Alex has to rise to the occasion and destroy the invaders, who not only endanger the galaxy's safety, but also his own life. Number 3. Message from Space, 1978. This space opera seems to draw quite a bit of inspiration from Star Wars. From the overall design to the score mixed with the odd Japanese insights, the film heavily borrows familiar elements from the iconic space story. The plot follows two adventurers who team up with a princess, oh so originally named Mia, to defeat an evil empire. The film also features space battles where ships shoot lasers at each other and small robots. While the story and characters may differ ever so slightly, the film's visuals seem to be heavily influenced by Star Wars, with a focus on octagonal designs used by the film's villains. It's clear that Message from Space is an example of how some filmmakers attempt to capitalize on the popularity of the successful space franchise. The peaceful world of Jalusia was attacked by a brutal alien army known as the Gavai, Sylvanas, commanded by a power-hungry leader with a bizarre mother-son dynamic in this sci-fi thriller. In a desperate attempt to rescue their world, the Jalusian king dispatches 8 sacred seeds, each packed with an intense energy capable of turning the course of the conflict. These relics will be gathered by 8 selected individuals from around the cosmos, all of whom have their own set of powers and backgrounds. A battle-hardened general, a delusioned Gavian prince, and a few more unusual choices are among the recipients of these seeds. In order to preserve their world from destruction, they must overcome their own fears and doubts as they embark on their journey to save Jalusia. Number 4. Starchaser, The Legend of Orin, 1985. The tale of a young space traveler named Orin is conveyed in this cartoon film that was produced in the 1980s. The movie was famous for being one of the earliest animated films created particularly for 3D viewing. Despite a $15 million budget, the film was unable to recover its costs, and it was lambasted for its many parallels to Star Wars. The movie features all of the components that one would expect from an original Star Wars film: tremendous battles in distant space, wacky robotic characters, and an exciting mission to vanquish the forces of evil. Notably, hardly a single component of the plot was very original, and it clearly ripped off from nearly every aspect of the Star Wars world, containing cliches such as a brave, youthful protagonist and the terrifying villain in black. The film features a tyrannical leader who oppresses a population of human beings in a distant world. Among these is a young man called Orin, who spends his days with others who work in the mines. Orin stumbles onto an ancient item one day that holds the secret to unlocking an immense power within him. With the help of a gruff but charming smuggler named Dag and a beautiful princess, Orin sets out to overthrow the oppressive regime and free his people. They face many hurdles and barriers along the road, but with their perseverance and courage, they may just have what it takes for them to bring about actual change and hope to their world. Number 5. Space Raiders, 1984. In an attempt to recapture the success of the Star Wars films, director Roger Corman created his second science fiction adventure, Space Raiders. Space Raiders follows the very Han Solo-esque main lead, which led them right into a massive commercial failure. Unfortunately for Corman, the regurgitated impressive special effects and action sequences failed to gain traction with audiences and ensured that the film quickly faded into obscurity. The film revolves around Peter, a small child who sneaks aboard a spaceship commandeered by a band of space pirates commanded by Colonel C.W. Hawk Hawkins, a fierce former soldier. Hawk promises to take Peter back to his home planet, but their mission is hindered by the presence of Hawk's arch-nemesis, Zoriatin, and a deadly robot ship tasked with finding and capturing Peter at any cost. Number 6. Battle Beyond the Stars, 1980. New World Pictures, led by Roger Corman, hopped onto the Star Wars rip-offs bandwagon with Battle Beyond the Stars, the precursor of many similar films. Despite its sluggish pace, weak acting, and unoriginal premise, the film made a shocking profit. It also garnered a loyal fan base over the years. In fact, the film continued to be popular enough that Blue Water Productions produced a prequel book named Battle Amongst the Stars in 2010. The film's protagonist, Shad, a peaceful planet's citizen, is forced to assemble a squad of unlikely fighters from around the galaxy to preserve his homeland from the villainous King Sador and his vast army of invaders. Space Cowboy, a talented driver of trucks from Earth who has acclimated to space travels, Gelt, a highly trained assassin seeking shelter, and Saint X-Men, a Valkyrie fighter eager to showcase her skills in combat, make up the odd trio of unlikely saviors. Number 7. The Black Hole, 1979. Many years before acquiring the license to the Star Wars series, Disney sought to compete with it by producing their own space epic film. The Black Hole attempted to combine elements from a host of previous successful movies, including a knockoff replica of C-3PO and R2-D2. However, the film lacked the action-packed excitement of Star Wars, and instead was riddled with meaningless technical jargon. The only redeeming feature of the picture was the visually stunning design design of the robots. Inevitably, the movie was a commercial flop, and the intended black hole attraction at Disney's theme parks was later replaced by the more famous Star Tours ride. The film follows the tale of the USS Palomino, an Earth starship on an exploration expedition who encounters an unusual occurrence, a black hole with a surrounding abandoned ship, the USS Cygnus. Captain Dan Holland, Trooper Charlie Pizer, reporter Harry Booth, researcher Dr. Kate McRae, civilian chief Dr. Alex Durant, and the machine known as Vincent decide to look into the enigma that is the Cygnus. They undertake a daring flyby of the wrecked ship, but as they get closer, the gravitational force vanishes. They are ignorant that the weightlessness zone is artificial and slide out of it, nearly falling into the black hole, which is an eternal pit. Reinhardt, the commander of the Cygnus, abducts the crew because he believes they may help him accomplish his goals. The team must devise a plan to free themselves from the clutches of Reinhardt before their time runs out. Number 8. Titan AE 2000. It was not unusual for films to try to capitalize on the phenomenal popularity of the Star Wars franchise. However, just when you'd think the hype would have died down, Fox Titan's AE attempted to ride the wave of excitement that the prologue trilogy generated. This animated picture was intended to be a live-action film, but after significant financial commitment and failure, the production was turned over to legendary animator Don Bluth. Unfortunately, the finished result could not have been worse, with a confusing plot, subpar voice acting, and spectacular but unsatisfying animation. Despite Fox's high ambitions, Titan AE was a massive disappointment, culminating in a $100 million disaster for the studio. The film is set when humanity is on the edge of extinction in the far future, with the vestiges of its once great civilization spread around the cosmos. But there is still hope in the shape of Titan, the mythical site regarded as humanity's final known sanctuary. A young explorer knows where it is, but he must stay out of the relentless hunt of the Dredge, an evil alien species hell-bent on annihilating humanity for good once and for all. With time slipping away, the race to get to Titan quickens before it's too late. Number 9. Luke's Change, an Inside Job, 2013. One exceptionally creative Star Wars-inspired fan film sticks out in the sea of fan films. It successfully satirizes the tone of conspiracy theory films by implying that the Death Star's destruction was an inside job conducted by Empire personnel. The movie expertly mocks the cliches of these sort of movies, particularly their overly dramatic narrative and sensationalized soundtrack, through humorous commentary and inventive editing. It demonstrates the power of satire as well as the ongoing appeal of the Star Wars series. From the point of view of a rookie reporter inside the Star Wars universe, the film tries to investigate a sequence of odd happenings and scenarios that occurred before the collapse of the Death Star. The central focus is on the connections between those who built and controlled the Death Star and those responsible for its destruction. Number 10. SPACEHUNTER, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, 1983. Every Star Wars ripoff is seemingly incomplete without a remote planet, a grotesque villain with cybernetic enhancements, and a charming rogue pilot. And SPACEHUNTER is no exception. The film has an eerie similarity to Star Wars, and it's evident that it was made to cash off on the franchise's success. Despite the apparent absence of innovation, the film is pretty entertaining to take in. It features Overdog, a considerably more mature rival than Darth Vader, whose principal objective appears to be the capture of women. And as expected, a bunch of unexpected heroes band together in order to save the day. Despite all of its flaws, SPACEHUNTER manages to evoke a sense of anticipation, keeping the specter wondering whether a stray Star Wars character might actually make an appearance. The film features a group of female explorers who are on a space trip when their ship breaks down, forcing them to crash land on an unusual planet. They quickly realize that the planet is riddled with a fatal infection, and they must find a means to survive while also searching for a cure. They are, however, kidnapped by a brutal ruler. A daring adventurer called Wolf goes out to save them, backed by an ingenious Earthling. They go on a perilous adventure together to save the imprisoned astronauts and prevent the monstrous Overdog from succeeding in his nefarious schemes. Number 11. You're the Hunter from the Future, 1983. This film is a crazy and surprising mashup of genres, combining aspects from Star Wars and Conan the Barbarian to create a strange and fascinating experience. It's a mind-boggling moment to see a character use an arrow and a bow to take out a Neanderthal, only then spin around and fire a laser at a robot. While many might deride the film as being silly, the non-stop action and rapid pace keep the audience fascinated. The filming technique is undoubtedly strange, with continual movement that contributes to the film's general strangeness. The cliched premise, along with the film's hammy acting, which is frequently criticized, really contributes to the overall enjoyment factor. Even if you like Star Wars and its numerous copies, this film sticks out as a poorly produced knockoff of them all. It's so awful that it's funny and might actually make you laugh. The movie follows the golden-haired warrior Yor, who is on a quest to learn the truth about his heritage and the significance of a mysterious pendant he wears. He sets out in search of a fabled goddess who is said to have a similar medallion and can offer answers. Yor faces a variety of hurdles in his adventure, including primitive ape-like animals, dinosaurs, and a strange advanced society. Number 12. Space Ninja, Sword of the Space Ark, 1981. This film is a unique fusion of martial arts and science fiction, providing spectators with an unexpected yet intriguing marriage between Bruce Lee and Star Wars. The action scenes are weird yet exciting, and the outfits incorporate futuristic military gear that wouldn't seem out of place in the 21st century. Although the set design is rather pointless, it does contribute to the general ambience of the movie. A spaceship, for example, has a useless sail considering the lack of air currents in space. However, the unorthodox decisions made by the creative team only contribute to the film's odd entertainment value. Despite being one of the lesser-known copies, this film stands out for how bad it is, and it is recommended for enthusiasts of martial arts and science fiction. A gifted warrior who travels to his home world to find it in the clutches of a wicked leader in this film. He realizes, to his horror, that the people he loves have been ruthlessly slain. The warrior goes out with his comrades to dethrone the terrible ruler and restore order to the land. Surprisingly, the film is a collection of episodes from the Japanese television series Galactic Warriors: Message from Space, which was a sequel to the film Message from Space. Number 13. LASERBLAST, 1978. This low-budget sci-fi Star Wars ripoff has now become a cult classic. While the story is basic and lacks depth, it is ideal for an entertaining movie session with friends. Some aspects of the film are redeemable, such as the retro VHS cover design and brilliant colors. Still, it unfortunately falls short of being an impressive movie and should only be seen by die-hard B-movie lovers who appreciate tacky and campy films. In general, LASERBLAST is a mediocre movie that is only watchable in specific, not-so-serious contexts. The film features an alien life form fighting an army of mutant creatures in the lonely Californian desert. As it is promptly vanquished, the defeated alien leaves behind sophisticated equipment, such as a laser pistol and a power supply. A teenage outcast discovers the alien trinkets and quickly realizes that the energy source has changed him into a terrible entity. Consumed by hatred and violence, he goes on a violent spree that endangers everyone around him. Number 14. The Man Who Saves the World, 1982. Originally titled Dünyayı Kurtaran Adam, this film was released as a scientific fantasy adventure in Turkey in 1982. It quickly became known for shamelessly stealing Star Wars footage and the soundtrack without permission. While many countries developed their own adaptations of the oh-so-popular Star Wars films at the time, this one really stuck out for its blatant imitation. The film has an avid following in the United States, where it is known as the Turkish Star Wars. Despite its lack of innovation, it is an intriguing piece of film history. While several background shots in the film are blatantly lifted from the Star Wars motion pictures, the plot is unrelated to the legendary sci-fi franchise. Two explorers find themselves compelled to make a sudden landing on a faraway planet. They quickly find that the planet is controlled by an evil wizard who seeks an enchanted treasure in order to conquer the entire universe. Number 15. The Humanoid, 1979. A movie that substantially capitalizes off a classic will almost never be good, as the humanoid has aptly demonstrated. The film borrows various scenes from the iconic sci-fi franchise, but falls short of matching its level of brilliance. Although starting with a similar vision of a spacecraft and having warriors brandishing futuristic weaponry, the film lacks the inventive storyline that made the original Star Wars films so famous. Although the narrative is modified only slightly from the original material, the humanoid's last act introduces an illogical time travel component that only helps bring down an already mediocre film. Two rivals fight for supremacy of their planet in a distant galaxy in the film. The tyrant Grawl leads one side, seeking to eliminate any dissent and impose his reign on the populace. To that aim, he enlists the help of Dr. Kraspin, an insane researcher who has created a drug capable of dramatically improving human skills. Their subject of study is a pilot called Golub, who accidentally becomes the experiment's first casualty. He is transformed into an invisible juggernaut and becomes an instrument in their power conflict. The inhabitants of this world must find a means to prevent Grawl and his henchmen from assembling a force of these enhanced troops and conquering their world for good. The destiny of their whole civilization is at stake. Number 16. Star Odyssey, 1979. Italy is notorious for making low-budget films that mimic popular American blockbusters. Star Odyssey represents a single such film that attempts to cash in on the sci-fi fad. Cress, the Darth Vader-esque villain, is presented as a scarred guy with a giant costume and a terrifying voice, but the parallels to Star Wars just don't stop there. The film's attempt to portray an epic space expedition falls short, as there is no comedy, and the leads lack depth or importance. The entire impact is lackluster and perplexing, with the story failing to create any narrative consistency. The movie shows us how an invasion of aliens threatens humanity's survival, driving a scientist to assemble a team of specialists from all over the world to join together and establish a coalition to confront this menace. Our hero and his crew are entrusted with investigating the situation and devising a plan to protect the planet's future. As time passes, emotions heighten as the team works hard to find a way out before it is too late. Number 17. H.G. Wells's The Shape of Things to Come, 1979. What motivates filmmakers to develop Star Wars ripoffs? Perhaps the original's appeal is just too irresistible. It is, however, not vital for every space-themed movie to be inspired by Star Wars, although the filmmaker of The Shape of Things to Come might not agree. While it borrows from the title of an H.G. Wells book, this Canadian movie lacks originality in all other aspects too. The sleek futuristic costumes and explosions that mimic A New Hope are just a few of the parallels that appeal to the sci-fi public's need for familiar tropes. Despite its lack of innovation, the flick manages to entertain, demonstrating that a lack of inventiveness may still result in an enjoyable viewing experience. The film shows us how humanity ended up having to move to the moon after a horrific disaster rendered Earth's condition unfavorable for human life. They depend on an anti-radiation drug found exclusively on planet Delta 3 to survive. However, Delta 3 has been taken over by Omus, a brilliant but evil ruler who places no significance on human life. Omus intends to invade the moon by crashing robot-controlled spacecraft onto doomed cities. Dr. John Cabal, his son's close companion, and a sentient robot embark on an unlawful trip aboard John's personal spaceship to stop him. Their mission is to breach Delta 3 and assassinate Omus before he can execute his lethal plot. Number 18. The Ice Pirates, 1984. This movie feels like a cheap knockoff of Star Wars, with a strong dosage of 70s-style comedy and a few other strange features tossed in for good measure. While it tries to be funny, the gags frequently fall flat, although some viewers may like the film so bad it's good quality. The settings and costumes are an eclectic mix, and the visual effects are somewhat acceptable for a B-movie. The action sequences and space wars are ridiculously over the top. While this isn't an exceptionally well-made movie, it is an enjoyable and engaging way to waste your time. Water is the most valuable item in a distant period in the future, which is when the film is based. A princess employs two enslaved and sold space adventurers to find her missing dad, who vanished after learning secretive knowledge that might compromise the reigning powers. This action-packed movie includes an eclectic mix of interstellar battles, deadly explosions, military robots, odd beings, bar brawls, and time anomalies. Number 19. Brazilian Star Wars, 1978. Originally titled Os Trapolhos na Guerra dos Planetas, this film appears to be intended for a very specific sort of audience. However, it's impossible to say who that is. The plot is unclear and disjointed, with little to no rational justification for many of the incidents that occurred. In some aspects, the movie is similar to Star Wars, but it lacks the richness and intricacy that made the movie series so successful. The characters are underdeveloped, and many of them appear to be exact clones of heroes from the Star Wars films. The filmmaker employs gimmicks such as slow-motion shots, reverse viewpoints, and fast-forwarding to keep the audience involved, but this simply adds to the confusion. The combat sequences are unimaginative, and the soundtrack is bland. Overall, the film is a catastrophe. The film features 4 buddies who go on an intergalactic odyssey to aim a royal named Flick. Flick asks for their help in liberating the world from the villainous tyrant Zuko. Flick promises them a prize as a reward for their assistance. The buddies then travel into space with a monster named Bonzo. On the planet, they outwit Zuko and survive the battle, but Princess Myrna, who has been abducted, perishes. Dee Dee's lover, Loya, succeeds her to the throne. When the companions return to Earth, they initially assume whatever happened to them was all an illusion until they stumble upon a vehicle stuffed with gold bars. Number 20, Krull, 1983. Krull is a film that intended to cash in on the enormous popularity of Star Wars, but was hampered by several production issues and budget overruns. Despite its reputation as a marketing flop and critical disaster, the movie maintains a modest fan base that appreciates its ambitious scale and attempted innovation. While Krull ultimately falls shy of its objectives, its efforts to come up with something new and exciting in an aftermath of a movie phenomenon are praiseworthy. In the middle of a cosmic battle that threatens the lives of all living creatures, Princess Lisa and Prince Colwyn, emissaries of opposing groups, band together to combat the enemy's overwhelming troops headed by the Beast. When Princess Lisa is kidnapped, Prince Colwyn sets out on a treacherous expedition to retrieve her from the Beast's stronghold. He must use all of his courage and ability to defeat the Beast and preserve their planet with the assistance of a team of warriors. Their only chance is a bizarre weapon with the ability to slay the Beast and bring peace to the universe.
I can't try!
Number 21, Prisoners of the Lost Universe, 1983. This early 1980s flick may not have the most complex narrative, nor the most incredible special effects or Star Wars-inspired equipment, but it nevertheless manages to provide a pleasant, if hammy, science fiction adventure. The film transports the spectator from the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles to another world, with cinematography reminiscent of vintage sci-fi TV programs mixed with the previously mentioned Star Wars elements. The film's vivid color palette is complemented by a diverse sound and soundtrack design. Audiences will see a variety of odd creatures, prehistoric beings, and a towering golden monster with painted golden makeup, all dressed in vibrant costumes. The film includes a ton of action, such as explosions, fist-fighting, club-banging, and swordplay. Dr. Hartman, Dan, and Carrie inadvertently activate an unusual technology that transfers them to another world. This appears to be a forgotten realm, and they rapidly realize that it is perilous. Carrie and Dan have to figure out a way to get back home without the doctor. They quickly find, however, that they are not alone on this planet and must battle with a variety of threats, including native tribes and a formidable warlord named Cleel, who appears to have access to ultra-modern technology. Number 22. Princess Warrior, 1989. Princess Warrior is a small-scale science fiction film that resembles Star Wars but falls short on becoming anything close to an actual, solid movie. The acting is terrible, the narrative is weak, and the visual effects, which are primarily poorly done lightsaber impersonations, are unattractive. Attempts at comedy and suspense are unsuccessful, and the battle sequences are crawling and unconvincing. Anyone who isn't really a lover of low-quality quality B movies is unlikely to appreciate this. The Queen's death in 1989 on a remote planet governed by a matriarchal culture leaves the youngest of her children, Ovul, as the next ruler. This choice, however, enrages her sibling, Curette, who attempts to murder Ovul. To escape her wrath, Ovul travels to Earth, where she encounters a biker named Bob and falls in love with him. In the meantime, Curette and her allies set out to find Ovul and seize the crown once and for all.
Please signal if you understand us. Please.
Number 23. Battle of the Lost Planet. This movie uses aspects from the Star Wars films in an unusual way, resulting in a low-budget but humorous experience. Although it lacks the uniqueness of the movie it is based on, it does capture parts of its magnetism. This film depends on real-life effects and places, so don't anticipate lavish sets or futuristic vistas. While the performances and storyline aren't very strong, the movie has an air of charm to it, evocative of a bunch of friends working on a passion project. Although it's hardly a cinematic classic, but it's an excellent movie for anyone looking for some corny entertainment. When the control panels of his spaceship fail, a man on an expedition to explore the cosmos finds himself in a very scary scenario. He loses sight of time as he travels through the great expanse of the cosmos and eventually comes back to Earth after a long absence, only to learn that the planet he once inhabited is now under the rule of an alien civilization. He must employ all of his abilities and resources to sustain himself in this new, hazardous environment and discover a means to recapture his home planet. Number 24. Starship, 1984. The movie in question looks to have copied substantially from the Star Wars series, with little innovation or quality to show for it. The film's robots are poorly made and unconvincing, and the musical soundtrack feels like a rehash of previous, more well-known sci-fi soundtracks. From the villains' designs to the surroundings and costumes, the film's whole look and feel appear generic and uninspired. It's a shame that a great deal of effort and time seems to have gone into making a movie that ultimately offers nothing to the genre, instead recycling on cliché tropes and poor imitations of superior works. This film, later popularized as Lorca and the Outlaws, shows us how the working conditions are severe on the arid planet of Odessa and working morale is poor. For the sake of order, corporate management has deployed lethal security robots in an attempt to quash any discontent. Lorca and his clandestine organization, on the other hand, are fighting back in order to liberate the downtrodden workers. Danny, a well-known target hunter, has been recruited to find Lorca and put down the rebellion. Laura and his companions must now fight the cruel hunter and his robotic henchmen in a battle for justice and liberty.
Boltan! You will die by the sword.
Number 25. Hawk the Slayer, 1980. Hawk the Slayer is actually a fantasy film featuring a British cast and low-budget production standards that follow the classic format of a quest. Though it may appear to be an odd, genre-bending Star Wars knockoff, the movie shines on its own with distinct twists and charm. While the visual effects aren't very stunning, they're handled well, and the slow-motion climactic combat gives a thrilling finish. The villain's headgear may resemble Darth Vader's, but the plot of the film is distinct in its own way. Because of its unique and amusing traits, Hawk the Slayer has grown to be a cult favorite. In the film, Hawk has no choice but to bring his unscrupulous brother to justice after witnessing the horrific deaths of his dad and lover at his hands. He sets off on a trip to recruit supporters who would aim him in overthrowing the tyrant and restoring peace to his world. Hawk faces several hurdles and roadblocks along the journey, but with the support of his newfound pals, he stays focused on his quest. Number 26. Space Mutiny, 1988. To say that this movie left a lot to be desired would be an understatement. The narrative lacked creativity and primarily depended on the mimicry of the most popular Star Wars movies. This incorporation of material from a prior Star Wars copycat TV show further added to the film's poor quality. All of the performances, cinematography, special effects, and editing were subpar. This movie unquestionably exemplifies the worst of the 1980s sci-fi flicks and is an utter letdown. Anyone looking for a fun movie experience should skip this one. The Southern Sun is a gigantic starship bringing thousands of colonists over the great expanse of the cosmos in the distant future. A group of rebels commanded by the evil Calgon launch a mutiny and gain the command of the ship one day. Their plan is to trade the people on board as slaves and destroy the ship. A bold man, however, rallies an assortment of soldiers and motivates them to stand up to the mutineers. They fight a ferocious struggle with laser weapons and high-tech grenades to reclaim the ship and rescue the commander's daughter. Number 27, Galaxina, 1980. This movie, which was released during the pinnacle of science fiction's acclaim, aimed to profit from the genre's popularity. However, the attempt to satirize the genre fell short since the comedy lacked proper pacing and struggled to elicit laughter. The idea of satirizing science fiction is a good one, but this film fails to execute it as well as previous excellent parody films. Additionally, the film's overt sexual comedy made it feel weird and creepy rather than humorous. After a successful trip, a group of space explorers on board a ship are returning to Earth. Their homecoming is cut short when they get new instructions to fly to Alter 1, a faraway planet, to acquire a powerful relic renowned as the Blue Star. They encounter unusual extraterrestrial beings and must cross perilous asteroid fields along the way. When they get to Alter 1, they learn that the planet is controlled by a vicious warlord who would go to any length to keep the Blue Star to himself. The crew has to battle the tyrant and his legion of robotic troops to collect the crystal and preserve the universe from disaster with the assistance of their loyal robot Galaxina. Number 28, Battlestar Galactica, 1978 TV series. The iconic 1970s TV show had its own distinct flair, but it couldn't avoid parallels to the then-recent movie Star Wars, despite the fact that the show's creator had been working on it for years before Star Wars. Many of the graphics and themes bore a remarkable resemblance to the space fantasy epic. In fact, a lawsuit was initiated because of these similarities. In spite of this, Battlestar Galactica has managed to forge its own distinct individuality and cultivate a devoted audience which has only grown with the show's most recent remake. In a faraway galaxy, the human colonies are on the verge of a momentous peace accord with their long-standing adversaries, the Cylons. The Cylons, however, violate the truce and unleash a catastrophic attack, wiping off the majority of the human population as well as their spacecrafts. The last human spacecraft, led by Commander Adama, sets off a frantic hunt for another place to call home, encountering many worlds and societies along the way. The Cylons, who are committed to eliminating the humans and any prospect of life, are a constant threat to this journey. Number 29, Jason of Star Command, 1978 TV series. The science fiction category has always been a hit, but with the rise of Star Wars, it saw a surge in popularity in television series. Jason of Star Command, which premiered in the late 1970s, was one such show. The series, which was produced by Filmation, was intended for younger demographics and contained a space voyage with a heroic lead named Jason. While this show had its plus points, it was evident that it was made, like many others, to capitalize on Star Wars' success, and it didn't even have the creativity and complexity of other sci-fi series of that period of time. Captain Jason was a Space Command officer stationed on a space rock that operated as a military installation. The primary objective of the Space Command was to keep the galaxy in order and protect it from any dangers that may arise. One of the most deadly dangers was a well-known space pirate, a one-eyed criminal that Jason had been fighting for years. The plot of the series centered around Jason's escapades and his efforts to fight the evil Dragos. Number 30, Masters of the Universe, 1987. This 1987 film adaptation had a distinct combination of magic and science fiction themes. It starred a fearsome protagonist named He-Man, who carried a mighty sword and laser gun. Skeletor, the film's main villain, was a scary character inspired by Darth Vader and the Emperor, while the inclusion of the whimsical Gwildor provided a sense of laughter to the narrative. Although the idea of the film was clearly inspired by the successful Star Wars franchise, it stood on its own as a unique and exciting journey. The villainous Skeletor has set his focus on taking over the cosmos in a faraway galaxy by controlling the powers of Castle Grayskull. He-Man, the galaxy's fiercest warrior, joins forces with his allies Man-at-Arms, Tila and the genius inventor Gwildor to foil Skeletor's evil designs. They are brought to the Earth via Gwildor's creation, the Cosmic Key, where the key is discovered by Julie Winston and her lover Kevin Corrigan. However, when Skeletor and his henchmen arrive on Earth in pursuit of the key, He-Man and his pals must rescue it before it slips into the hands of the wrong people. What they accomplish determines the destiny of the cosmos. Marvelous verdict. Ultimately, Star Wars has had an enormous effect on popular culture, encompassing the worlds of film and television. Its success has produced a slew of knockoffs and rip-offs, a few of which have gone on to become classics of cult status in their own right. Although some of these movies and television shows had been lauded for their own takes on the epic space genre, many have been chastised for being clear rip-offs of the Star Wars model. Nevertheless, these rip-offs remain popular among fans who grew up seeing them and embracing their distinct brand of nostalgia. The lasting impact of Star Wars will undoubtedly continue to influence the next wave of filmmakers and innovators, and we can only speculate on what new tales and worlds they may offer on screens, big and small. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe.